me just say, this is probably going to be one of the most uncomfortable videos I've ever put on YouTube because I'm very uncomfortable even going into this and treading into this territory. I shall bring this up in my next therapy session because dreading making this video was probably a telltale sign that I probably was way more traumatized about Catholic school than I thought I was. Like, I'm starting to feel real stressed out. My head is starting to hurt. I just don't feel good. So we're going to make this one quick. Find it crazy that I left the Catholic school to go to public school and still ended up in a Catholic church for 10 years after. Oh, wasting my life. Like, yeah, the whole thing, as much as I appreciate what Catholic school did for me, the entire experience was extremely traumatic. And let's talk about it. I'm the Mademoiselle and Sasse Deuxième Chanel. Welcome to my second channel. This is my Haitian channel. If you're not aware, we do have multiple channels. Keep up, keep up. Scan that lovely QR code to get acquainted with the links. Welcome to part 2 of my Catholic religion experience. Now, last time we talked about me going to the Catholic Church, being in the Catholic Church, being involved for like a full-blown decade. And before that, I was actually in Catholic school. Now, it's very interesting. If you guys are not aware, right, I've been doing a series on the education system and all the shit that y'all need to look out for. If you're not aware, I'm a dance educator. My last contract ended because of budget cuts and shit. And I was like, I'm not renewing this to do something else. I want to dance. And I've decided to focus on my nonprofit, LakayRo, which focuses on Haitian and Afro diasporic dance for underprivileged youth and adults. So if you guys would like to donate, check anything out, scan the lovely QR code. Shout out to those guys who've been supporting, sending in donations. I appreciate it so much. I would really love to start a team. Shout out to those of you guys who've been supporting, who are members, who are on the Patreon. Like, every dollar counts, okay? Whether it's $1 to me or the $1 to a nonprofit, like, I deeply appreciate it, right? But I've been talking about my experiences, and lately I've been talking about being in private school. What's very interesting is I went from private school to public school because I saw that my parents could not afford it anymore, right? My parents could not afford to keep me in Catholic school anymore. Therefore, I decided to go to public school, and I love the experience. And it's crazy because if you guys have been watching me for a long time, especially if you've been on the personal channel where I used to do story times and shit, you would know I had a crazy time in high school, fighting all the time, friends passing away due to diaspora wars with Haitians and African Americans or Black Americans. Like, when I'll tell you, I had such a traumatic experience in public school, but I would still take public school over private school any other day because private school was personally traumatic to me. Yes, it's traumatic to have friends die and you don't have to fight for your life just because you're Haitian, but it's even more traumatic to be in an environment that is not inclusive, is full of racism, and just stunted your growth in a way. For those of us that's been to private or Catholic school, for the most part, I think a lot of us have a shared experience of trauma. Whether you loved it or hated it, I think a majority of the people that I know anyway have told me that their Catholic school or private school experiences were traumatic, right? There's loads of bullying, classism. There's a lot that goes on in these schools that is often not talked about because it's a very niche experience. You're really only going to understand it if you've been through it. There's different levels and different facets, right? There's a lot of racism, classism, elitism, etc. on the student side, and then there's a lot of that on the educator side as well. It's a very interesting experience because, again, you're not going to really find a majority of these experiences in other places. Not saying they don't exist, it's just rare, right? So first things first, Catholic schools really were popular a long time ago because the public school system wasn't doing their job, okay? They dropped the ball. The public schools dropped the ball, and that's why a lot of these other schools, especially these charter schools, are able to run amok, okay? They're able to do whatever it is that they want with these kids because the public schools did not do their fucking job. Back in the day, Catholic schools and other types of private schools were literally literally that gateway. They were the charters back then, and then they started dropping the ball. So then that's when, charters became a real big thing. Like, I think both of them kind of came up on the same time, around the same time, but nonetheless, private schools were a great option for a lot of people because they felt like, you know what, if I'm paying for my child to get an education, then they're going to get an amazing education. But boy, oh boy, we would be sitting here too long talking about stories in Catholic school. And that's crazy because it was such a traumatic experience that I don't remember any of it. But a majority of what I do remember were crazy. There were crazy stories. There were traumatic stories. And I don't even know if I want to relive it. Like, it's very weird. My brain does this thing where if something really traumatic or really like bad happens to me, I start to forget it. So literally, I don't remember anything about elementary. I remember bits and pieces of middle. And that's really about it. It's only when someone, like I talk to someone and they trigger a memory for me that I'm like, oh my God, I do remember this. But for the most time, my brain really blocks it out because, again, it was that traumatic, right? So when it comes to Catholic schools, okay, there's a lot of really good ones and there's a lot of really bad ones. They are all over the country. Unfortunately, lately, a lot of them have been closing, but they have served in many communities as a viable option to educate your child, instill them in the faith, and most importantly, instill them with some discipline, right? And that goes into my first notable point that I don't think a lot of people really like think about, especially now in 2026, because a lot of people think this still doesn't happen, but it does. Back in the day, right? I remember talking to my mom and she told me that she literally gave the school permission to beat me if anything happened. Now, remind you, my parents never touched me. Ever. Like, I've never been beaten. My parents were not the typical Haitian parents. They still had flaws in other ways. We've already talked about this at length on all my platforms. But they gave that school permission to beat me. And this is something I could never understand. I don't believe in beating children. I think it's very dumb. Like, you think it's okay to beat a child, like literally inflict violence on a child to get them to respect you. I think that's fucking crazy. To have a school do it is even crazier to me. And back in the day, apparently this was common. This was a real thing that a lot of Catholic schools would do. Clarify, I've never been hit from what I remember. I don't know. Maybe one day a memory is going to resurface of being hit at that school. Although I was never hit, I did witness a lot of questionable behavior from a lot of the staff inflicted onto these students. That's all I'm gonna say on that. And also I remember being punished in just some weird ways that I know would never fly today or never fly in any public school setting. But obviously was allowed in Catholic schools because they kind of just do what they want. They were out here hitting kids, beating kids, doing all types of crazy shit as punishment, and the parents were signing off on it. It was something that you would sign a document about in the beginning of the school year or whatever when you were enrolling. And I'm like, that is so crazy to me. And it caused me to look into a lot of different things. And that's what really caused me to start like looking back on a lot of different things that I went through and a lot of the different experiences. Because I'm like, yeah, this shit just was not it, right? Also, one thing to note, right, when I went from Catholic to public school, I realized I was extremely behind. I genuinely didn't know what I was doing. Like, especially when it came to math, like when it came to English and stuff, I was really good. But when it came to math, I was extremely behind. Now, I know a lot of people say the opposite, right? They went to Catholic school and the public school was behind. This very much so varies on what district, what state, city, or whatever you're in. But for me, I was really behind. And I also didn't have, I don't know if this is in every Catholic school thing, but coming from the Catholic school that I came from, there was no GPAs. It was just grades. They did everything by paper. There was almost nothing on the computer at the time. I graduated 2009. So when I went into high school, I didn't know anything about GPAs. I was just like, okay, if I pass, I pass. GPA where? That's how I ended up graduating with a 1.7 or 1.8. Great. I don't know. I graduated with a really low GPA, but I still made it into college because I did a lot of extracurriculars and stuff. And that shit pissed me off because it's like, why y'all don't educate niggas on GPAs? Why don't y'all go by GPAs when y'all know that it's important for college and everything else? Coming from the K-8 that I was coming from, there was no GPAs. I even found my old report card recently, like a couple years ago. And I was like, I was really looking like, okay, where's this GPA? And it was literally just a report card, written grades, like handwritten grades. There was no GPA, there was no calculations. And I'm like, yeah, that shit fucked me up because I went into high school thinking all I got to do is pass. It doesn't really matter, child. It definitely mattered. It definitely did not go well for me because I failed 2 classes my entire high school career. Okay, 2. Literally, one, I think it was algebra, maybe, or calculus. I don't know. It was one of these math class, and then I failed a science class. And my GPA never recovered. despite getting straight A's and B's for every other class for 4 fucking years. But I'm telling you, they weighed they shit serious in Elizabeth. Oh my God, that shit was crazy. And the only thing that saved me was all the extracurriculars and the community service that I was doing. That's the only reason I got into college. Personality and extracurriculars, right? So that's something to be mindful of depending on the school you go to. I think it's different now. Like it's 2026. Maybe they do things a lot differently in these schools. But also things are weighed differently in private Catholic schools than they are in public schools. One thing to note that is very important, which I realize a lot of parents are not aware of. In a Catholic school, you're going to a Catholic church. What I noticed, right, growing up was that there were a lot of kids that went to Catholic church simply because it was a better option than public school, and they didn't understand what being in a Catholic church meant. A lot of people do not like the idea of religion intersecting with education, the state, etc. But when you put your child in a Catholic school, you're subjecting them to Catholic religion and Catholic ideologies, which I personally wouldn't give a fuck because obviously I was Catholic my entire life. But for somebody that is, I don't know, Orthodox, Jewish, Protestant, that's probably not something that you would want, right? That's probably not something that you would like. Although Catholics do follow a Christian doctrine, a lot of people make that common misconception of, oh, well, Catholics aren't Christian. Yes, they are. They are part of the Christian sect. They are actually one of the oldest churches in the Christian sect, and they are considered Christian because they follow Jesus Christ. They believe in God and all those things that all the other Christians follow. They're all under the same bubble, the same umbrella, right? But a lot of people forget that, right? A lot of people kind of forget, yeah, when you put your kid in a Catholic church, they're going to be doing Catholic things. Like, they don't give a fuck that your child's Protestant. You're going to be saying Our Father. You're going to be saying grace. All of that shit is interwoven. All of that shit is incorporated into these curriculums. Religion, faith, going to mass. Like, we went to mass a lot, okay? We would have times where we didn't go to class because we had mass at 9 o'clock. Oh, so math, ain't no math today. We got to go to mass. Like, it's very, very church heavy, right? It's very, very indoctrinating. Religion is in fact a course, like, and you had to pass it. It was a major class. It was a core class. I never did well in religion strictly because it was one of the most boring classes. I'm not gonna hold you. It was really boring to me. I never liked the way they taught it. I always thought it was just very authoritarian and you couldn't ask any questions. And if you asked questions, they were kind of just like side-eyeing you and looking at you like, what do you mean? Why can't women be priests? Yeah, bitch, why can't women be priests? Like, why is that a bad question? It's just certain things that I realized, like, yeah, like I realized a lot of my anxiety definitely stems from Catholic school. Like, I thought it came from living in the hood, right? Seeing people get shot at. No, it stemmed from there. I remember my entire life, like especially in my youth, never ever wanting to ask questions. And it's funny because y'all already see I'm very outspoken. Like, I'm very whatever now, but it took a long time to break out of that. Like, I started becoming outspoken and being whatever like that, like in like middle school into high school, because I was like, listen, y'all not about to silence me, baby. La, 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 la. Yo, what I'm saying, it got to the point where like I could be lost and I would rather stay lost for 3 hours than ask for directions. That's how scared I was to ask questions, because anytime, like, you know, when it came to being in a Catholic environment, it was what you say is what you do. Okay. It was what I say is what you do. You do what you're told because you're a child. Don't ask no questions. So asking questions gave me extreme anxiety that I can't even begin to explain it. All right. Next thing we have is tuition. Tuition for Catholic schools is extremely expensive. Like, imagine paying anywhere from $500 to $1,500 for your kids to go to school every single month. And that was the early 2000s. Okay, that was early to mid 2000s. There's no way. That shit right now is probably astronomical. Like, back then, $500. Right now, $500 a lot. Back then, $500 was a fuck ton. Okay, and I don't remember. I think the only people that were paying like $500 tuition were people that had like the babies, like pre-K or something. Could have been like $500. I think that's probably like, I don't know, I gotta find one of these parents and ask them like, yo, how much was you paying? I know there were some people that had like some sort of like support and financial aid. My parents never got that. They never qualified because they only had one kid, and both my parents working meant they made too much money. But y'all already know, right? It's the same thing how like a lot of people don't qualify for Section 8 or don't qualify for Medicaid or food stamps because they make too much money, but it's like, it's not even enough money. I grew up with loads of adversity. I grew up with eviction notices on the door, not having electricity, not having gas. I didn't have the nicest stuff growing up, so I was always being made fun of. My parents didn't always have a lot. They didn't qualify for financial aid, which a lot of times led to me not being able to go to school. Or better yet, they wouldn't send me home. What they would do is, if my parents didn't pay the tuition, they would kind of just like make me sit in the office all day doing nothing. They wouldn't give me the work. I'd just sit there for hours. Sometimes they called my parents and they said, hey, you need to pay this tuition or she's going to sit right here. And they were very rude about it. You know what's funny? Of all the memories I have of being in Catholic school, I'll say the most vivid and the most traumatizing was that, because I get a business is a business, Catholic school or not. You need to pay your dues. You need to pay your tuition. But the way these adults treated me, because my parents didn't pay tuition and they treated it like it was my fault. I've actually never talked about this. Not in therapy, not to anyone. So you guys are hearing it here first. That shit hurt. Like, they really made me feel like I was a criminal for not paying, well, for my parents not paying the tuition. They literally had me sitting in the office all day. Anytime they didn't get the tuition on time or whatever, they would call my parents and they'd be like, oh, she's going to sit here. She's going to stay here all day. And you guys, you need to come. You need to pay your tuition. And my parents couldn't leave work, obviously, to come get me. My mom didn't drive. They would call my dad most of the time. My dad was like, okay, I'm going to bring the money, you know. Could she go to class? And they'd be like, no, she's going to sit here all day. She's not allowed to have services. She doesn't have access to services. She don't pay. Like, they were very nasty. Yo, I'll never forget. There was one time, okay, where my parents didn't pay tuition. I was sitting in the office all day and I really had to go to the bathroom. Like, it was really, really bad. And they wouldn't even let me go to the bathroom. Yes, Sage. Yes. They wouldn't even let me go to the bathroom. I feel like there's a certain way to do things, and there's a certain way for you to treat kids, other human beings, especially kids though. Like, that shit was dramatic. Well, I'm telling you, nasty is nasty. And then, you know, I felt horrible because I see my classes going to and from class, right? Like, they're going from lunch to gym, from gym to art or whatever. And they're passing me. They're like, hey, Ivana, like, why aren't you in class? And it's like, I'm sick. I used to just be like, I'm sick. I don't feel well. I think that's what really used to piss me off. Like, you would think they put me in the back office or something. Like, no. They would legitimately have me sitting like right in the hallway where everybody could see me. Just like sitting right there. Oh, and they're like, what's wrong? Like, why are you there? Like, you know how the teachers tell you to be quiet. I'm sitting there like, oh, like, you know, I don't feel well. I'm like sick, you know, like head hurts. I used to have like really chronic migraines, so it was believable that my head hurt. It was believable that my stomach hurt. Because sometimes I would eat oranges on purpose to make myself sick. I'm allergic to oranges. So to this day, it's funny because there's like two of my friends that I still have from elementary school to this day. One of them I've been friends with since like first grade. And we had a conversation about this recently. And I was like, you know, all those times where y'all were asking me like, yo, why weren't you in class? Why are you in the office? Like, why aren't you here? It was because my parents didn't pay the tuition. And she was like, what the fuck? And they just made you sit there? I was like, yeah. She was like, yo, that's some bullshit. Like, they was always doing weird shit. And then we started talking about it. And then she started talking about how, like, sometimes her mom didn't pay tuition or, like, sometimes things fell through. Because I believe her mom had, like, a financial aid situation. So she was paying, like, less than a majority of people. She also had 2 kids. So she had, like, a 2-kid discount. I remember her saying, never made me do that. I was like, that's ironic. And that goes into my next point, the racism. I remember at one point, I used to say I never really experienced racism. And then I actually had to sit back and be like, there's a lot of things that I did experience that were racist as fuck, or just even if it was like, okay, that's not blatantly racist, it's a little racist, it's microaggressive. One of them was that entire experience, because I feel like I was only put there because I was black. I ain't never seen none of my white friends not paying tuition and being sat there. And a lot of you guys are probably like, well, maybe your white friends' parents paid tuition. No, some of them was late, some of them also didn't pay, because like I told you guys, I still talk to a lot of the people that I went to school with. And yeah, some of them was like, oh yeah, sometimes my parents paid late, they didn't have to sit in the office. I did though, because I'm a nigga. Funny enough, right? So the school is predominantly black, right? This Catholic school that I went to was actually like very black, especially because the particular school that I went to actually shut down and then reopened under a different name. Technically, the school no longer exists. It actually got shut down because lack of funding. But the name of the school was actually Christ the King, right? Christ the King was great, amazing, loved it. even though what they did to me, okay, two things to be true at the same time, it was a really good school. They didn't have money. The principal was leaving. They were going through changes in loads of different things. So instead of shutting down completely, they merged with another school that was having budget cuts and issues. And the school was called St. Catherine's. Also closed, obviously, because they merged with us and we became Hillside Catholic. Hillside Catholic closed. Now it is the Patrick School. I don't know anything about it. I didn't look into it. But nonetheless, the building still exists, but the school no longer exists, right? Hillside Catholic was an interesting experience. I feel like that's probably where a lot of my trauma comes from, because that's where a lot of the Black kids came, right? We had a lot of kids from St. Catherine's. St. Catherine's was borderline Elizabeth, Newark, Hillside. It was like right there off North Broad Street, if you guys know the area. So we got a huge influx of Black kids. Before, I think it was more of an even mix, but more so way more white kids than Black kids. I don't know if a lot of people pulled their white kids out because they realized, oh, all these niggas is coming, or if it was because the school's closing and I don't really care about this new management. Unless we got a lot of Black kids. And I loved it. It was lit. Okay, it was so fucking lit. Now, this happened in 4th grade, right? I had my first Black teacher in 2nd grade. As I was thinking about this video and making my notes, I was telling myself, oh, I had my first Black teachers in middle school, you know? No, I had my first Black teacher in 2nd grade. And the only reason I don't remember it is because actually that teacher was one of my friends, okay, one of my classmates' mom. And it was a little weird. And I don't know, like 2nd grade was kind of a blur, but she got pushed out super quick. Like she probably only did 1 year of teaching before she was pushed out because of racism and a lot of the microaggressive behavior. And then next we had my teachers in middle school. They also got pushed out due to racist behavior. I'll never forget, I had a teacher, Ms. Barker, okay? I don't know if she watches my content, but I do have her on Facebook. Amazing educator. She was hard as fuck. She was one of the toughest teachers I've ever had in my entire career of life, but she was an amazing teacher. She was an amazing educator, and I'll never forget. She was the first teacher that I ever had to openly speak about racism. Her experiences as a Black woman, although a lot of the experiences were very unprofessional. We're in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, and you're talking about your dating experiences. It was a little unprofessional, but I'm grateful for it because it opened my eyes to a lot of things at a young age that I needed to hear. And one of the things she talked about was when she first applied for the job, her name was very white. Okay. I'm just going to say her name is Ms. Barker, but we're going to change her first name. You know, privacy reasons. We're going to name her Mary Beth. Okay. Say her name was Mary Beth Barker. So obviously the school saw her resume come in and they saw her name and they thought that she was Caucasian, but she wasn't. And literally she walked into the interview and the principal was like, oh, we thought you were white, like blatantly, just like that. And she was ready to walk out, not take the position or whatever, not even deal with it. But then she's like, you know what? Let me just see what this shit has to offer. Let me see what the position has to offer. It is what it is, you know? And how many times do we do that? We do that all the time as Black people. I think we need to stop doing that as Black people. But see now, okay, from Gen Z to millennials to even Gen X, we're not playing that shit, okay? You're not going to be blatantly racist and then get away with it. Think you're going to get away with it, right? So, you know, they continue to interview and they keep making jokes about how they thought that she was white and that she wasn't Black. And, you know, it rubs her the wrong way, but she ends up taking the position. And then the entire time, it was just horrible. Like, I don't even believe she finished out that school year with us. I remember getting her in 6th or 7th grade. She did not graduate with us. Like, she did not end up making it to graduation. I remember she quit mid-school year. I could do an entire story time on Ms. Barker. I liked her a lot. I think she was an amazing teacher. But there was a lot of things that she did that was extremely unprofessional that she probably shouldn't have done. But still, I would never take it away from her being like a really good educator in a general sense. Two things can be true at the same time. I live by that. A person could do this to you, but it doesn't take their talent away, right? It doesn't take their accolades away. She was a good teacher. But nonetheless, I remember she ended up leaving. And I remember she would tell us these stories like, oh, they're trying to say that I can't wear this because I'm voluptuous, right? Black people, most of the time, we have a little bit more hips, right? We have a little bit more chest. So they would be like, oh, she can't wear this skirt or she can't wear this shirt. Mind you, she was always fully clothed. I'm lying. I'd be lying if I said that. She would wear little slits in her skirt and little cleavage here and there, but it wasn't like, she didn't have a big chest. It was still appropriate. Like, she would always come to school appropriate. She was always dressed very well. And they would say things about her skirt like, oh, it's too tight, or oh, her butt is too big. I think there was a time a teacher told us that her butt was too big for the skirt. There was another occasion where apparently somebody else on staff basically said her hair was unprofessional. Mind you, she wore weave all the time. Like, she wore like a sew-in. So I didn't understand that one. Like, it was constant, okay? I had another Black teacher, McDaniel. He was great. He had a crush on Miss Barker. She was never giving him the time of day, but he was also always facing microaggressions. I remember there was one time he said that they were basically questioning his grading and questioning his lesson plans because they were too black. Okay, so he was a history teacher. So they were blocking him from teaching what he wanted to teach. Like Ms. Barker was science, right? So science is science. There's not much you can really do with that. The curriculum is the curriculum. But when it came to history, he wanted to teach us black history, right? He wanted to teach us the real truth about a lot of the things that we were learning, but they were blocking him. But he would still do it anyway. He'd be like, all right, so today we're supposed to be learning about Christopher Columbus, but let me tell you the real truth. So Christopher Columbus landed in Haiti. Okay, some of y'all is Haitian in here. He landed in Haiti. Like, he used to really like tell the truth. And that, yeah, that didn't work out for him. I don't remember if he graduated with us or not. I'd have to ask a friend if they remember. But all my black teachers was pushed out real quick due to racism. And it wasn't different for us as kids. There were a lot of times where we felt like the black kids were getting punished a lot more and a lot more frequently than the white kids. Even though it was predominantly black, of course, we still had white kids. You know, they were sprinkled in there. They got preferential treatment. They got a lot of incentives. They got better grades even. Like, now that I look back at it, it's like I worked really hard from elementary to middle school. I actually did homework. I didn't do homework in high school or college. Really, like, that's another story for another time. But it's like in high school they didn't give us homework. In college it was just like, I'm not doing this because if it's not agreed, a lot of times they would just give us the homework as busy work. I did all the major projects and that's it. I'm not doing homework. Like, I got shit to do. I got club to be in. Okay. But I worked really hard in elementary and middle school and I feel like it was never enough. I think part of that had to do with me being undiagnosed ADHD, bipolar and all that, mainly ADHD. I feel like maybe it was hard for me to focus. I know math was extremely hard for me, but I remember consistently asking for help and being like real disrespected every time I asked for help. Real like chastised. Like, I remember having nuns as teachers. Oh my God, a lot of the math teachers were nuns. They were horrible. They were not good teachers. Like, they just weren't. If you got it, you got it. If you didn't, you just faced being ridiculed and made fun of and disrespected because you didn't understand it. That's part of the reason I just chose to fail. Like, I would choose to fail and just whatever. I'll take my D if I could get it. It was just, oh my God, it is low-key traumatic. The final thing that I remember about Catholic school was a lot of the retaliation, right? So aside from the racism, the classism, being made fun of for not having everything, there was a lot of elitism, entitlement, and a lot of people, a lot of kids. I mean, kids and adults doing it to each other where it's like, oh, you're going to give me a bad grade. There's a lot of that, right? There was a lot of, oh, well, you're going to be bad. I'm going to tell your mom because I know she's going to believe me and I'm going to tell her that you did something that you didn't do. There was too much of that. Private schools are notorious for that. A lot of retaliation, a lot of lying on kids, a lot of lying on teachers, a lot of I don't like you and I'm going to get you in trouble that I just could never get down with. Like, that's why I feel like I was walking on eggshells. Like, I didn't come into myself until like well into 7th, 8th in high school because I felt so silenced. I felt defeated. Like, I felt like I couldn't ask for help because I'd get made fun of. I don't have the nicest clothes. My parents can't afford tuition. I'm just going to shut up and blend in and just hope nobody noticed me for real. Like, I'm just going to, I'm going to chill. Like, oh my God. Ooh, this was a lot. I think I'm just going to end that there. I hope you guys enjoyed my experience in Catholic school in whatever. I hope you guys are enjoying the series so far. I don't know which church I'm going to cover next, but comment down some suggestions down below and I'll let you guys know if I've been there, if I have much to say about it or not. And yeah, we're going to continue this series. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for supporting me. Please scan the QR code for everything you guys always ask me about. You can also peep the description box. We do have multiple channels. Make sure you guys check all of those out. They're going to be linked down below or in the QR code. Shout out to the patrons, the investors, and everything in between. I love you so very much. Make sure you guys donate to LakayRo. Okay, we are a non-profit. Okay, you do get it as a tax write-off. Make sure you guys, get your life together. Donate. Again, thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Get this video to 500 likes so we can drop the next part. And with that being said, like, share, and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram, and I'm gonna see y'all next time. Bye.